What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Moguls. My name is Findlay-Shirras, and on today's episode, we've got the broker of record from a very innovative brokerage that you're going to hear about and learn from and get to know. It's Miss Vicki Schmidt from Justo.ca. Do you say that in the title of the brokerage, Justo.ca, or you say just Justo?
It's just Justo.
Just Justo. So why don't you let everyone know what is Justo and why is it an innovative brokerage model?
Okay, so we are a new brokerage that started last September in the market. The focus of our brokerage and the foundation of the actual name Justo is really Latin for justice, which is fair and transparent, which is really the foundation behind everything that we do here. We are a full service brokerage that offers our services at half of what a typical brokerage would, as well as we include additional services for our clients. And really, at the end of the day, our focus from sort of beginning to end is about customer service and being able to really make sure that the customer has the information and the data that they need to make good real estate decisions.
So when you say not fair or not transparent, what have you noticed in the industry that is not fair or is not transparent that needs to be?
Well, you know, we start with our rates. We are the only brokerage that I know of that, you know, transparently lists or shows their listing commissions as well as our buyer cashback right on our website. A lot of brokers are working for, you know, different types of real estate brokerages, and they all work independently. They set their own commissions and their own structures, their own rebates, and all of their own incentives. So, you know, having a customer trying to navigate through all of that information to be able to narrow it down to an agent that they want to work with, and not knowing if they're getting a good deal, and also starting that relationship with the new agent, not knowing and having to try to negotiate a commission with them right off the bat when they're really supposed to be working for their best interest, creates a little bit of a conflict in the beginning. So we're very transparent about what we do, and our customers love the idea and how refreshing it is to not have to feel like they have to do all of that up front, because we're just actually giving them a new option that's available without all of that.
So you've had a journey through real estate in many different ways. Mm-hmm. Why don't you kind of let people know a little bit about your story and then why you chose to be the broker record for Justo?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the industry for over 20 years. I started actually in the financial services and the mortgage industry, and then sort of went over to real estate. I've worked on the commercial side of the business, worked in sort of new construction, flipping homes, renovations. I've worked for just the traditional brokerage myself. I spent the last 7 to 8 years also working on the pre-construction side, so with developers and for developers, doing all of the product and sales for those companies as well. So I've definitely had experiences from many different sides of the business, and I think in real estate, you know, transparency is definitely an issue across the board, and you know, there is a little bit of that information gap between buyers and sellers and the real estate community. So when this sort of opportunity came up, and you know, it's very evident that the market's changing, and I was looking for something that was fresh and new, and wanted to be sort of on the forefront of that. So that's why this was so appealing and exciting to me, because it really just focuses in on the customer and using technology and efficiency to make the process so much more streamlined and better for everybody.
What are some of them? I mean, everyone talks about the changes in the marketplace with the brokerage model, with the agent role and responsibilities, with the consumer. What are some of the bigger changes that you see happening that make this a great or right model for the future?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of change. You know, the real estate market in general has been very stagnant over sort of the last 20 years, and it's really been kind of over the last 3 or 4 globally that, you know, Proptech has been all the new buzzword, and there's been a lot of new innovations in other markets, especially the States and overseas. and you see these guys now coming into the Canadian market, which is definitely a even more signal that there's change. The Canadian market has been so regulated over the years, and really it stemmed from the lack of access to data, and the customer relying so heavily on the agent to get the information that they want to make a good real estate decision. So that's sort of been broken open a little bit with the Supreme Court ruling with respect to sold data and some of the changes that have coming there. So now that the door's open, I feel like the floodgates are definitely, going to go crazy from there in terms of what we can do next and what kind of information that we can access and get in the hands of customers. And in markets like the States have proved that having access to that data doesn't change the role for an agent, that they're still very involved in the process, just in a bit of a different way than how they traditionally were.
So sold data is now, is allowed to be open or public to some extent.
Yeah, so as long as it's on a password protected website. So we actually have sold data up on our website now. So buyers and sellers can go and search and sign up as a user with us. And be able to search homes in their neighborhood that have sold and be able to see what they sold for.
Now, what do you think is next? Do you think it's just going to be like, well, it doesn't have to be password protected? Do you think there's going to be other information that has been held private that's going to start becoming more public? Like, what do you think is the next thing in that floodgate that's going to come through?
Yeah, so I think as, access to even different types of information that some of the other government regulatory bodies have with respect to property and just data in general. Like TREB, you have access to data from TREB as a licensed realtor, but a lot of that isn't sort of public knowledge, and it's not something that you can go and just take that information and reuse it. So even just information like details on school districts and simple stuff like walk scores and things like that, but even potentially crime rates and different things that will help people make more educated decisions. Zillow has done an incredible job of doing stuff like that in the States, where they've have data and statistics like so much for a lot, but a lot of it is a lot more public record in the States than it is here.
Now they're coming to Canada, so what do you think about that?
They are. You know what? I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for Canadians to be able to have access to that, and I think that's what we're trying to encourage is, that doesn't mean that the role of an agent is not important, because there's a lot of other complexities with a real estate transaction that they need to be guided through. But having access to information so that they can more quickly be able to navigate down to an area, or even just trends in different neighborhoods of pockets that are performing better than others, or maybe up and coming pockets where versus it coming out in sort of a report, something that real analytics that customers can use.
Now Zillow is starting to bleed into not just being a search portal, but now with their iBuyer model coming out, and what's the next thing that they're going to do to get closer to the customer, closer to the transaction. What do you foresee them turning into? And that leads into the bigger question of like, what does this competitive landscape look like? And how does that affect you guys?
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because I think there will become a point, of critical mass where it'll just kind of blow the doors off the traditional MLS kind of model, where customers have enough access to data that the model as we see it won't necessarily exist anymore. But that's going to take some time, and the sort of iBuyer kind of model, and that is great, and it functions very well in the U.S. market, because the way they close an escrow is very different than how it happens here in Canada.
So do you think that iBuyers will be big in Canada, or do you think brokerages like yourself might get an iBuyer service to then add another service to their customers?
Yeah, I think it is a great service where someone wants to sell and they don't have to worry about any of the complexities of trying to prepare a home for sale and going through that process and trying to live through the home while it's being showed, and they just want to walk away and maybe move to a different market or not have to deal with the hassles of it. and just have someone take care of it. Again, I think it's definitely possible here. I do know there is a few companies I've seen emerge that are working on that model.
Yep. I mean, it's really an evolution of the ad of, if I don't sell your house in 90 days, I will buy it myself.
Right, that's totally. And I think I was reading about a company even in Calgary or something that is launching that model. I know there's a few in Toronto that do that as well. I think one of them is iBuyers.
What's the challenge in that? Like why can't you just all of a sudden be like, great, let's open up an iBuyer service and let Justo customers now have an option of using a Justo agent to then sell their house for a higher value, or just here's a cash offer,
It's all about capital. The company needs the capital to be able to close on those properties, and with the way the structure is here, if they're actually closing and transferring title, they have to pay, whoever's like the company would have to transfer title, pay land transfer tax, which in the Toronto core with the double land transfer tax is quite hefty, right? Like it can be $30,000-$40,000 on some properties. So there's a credible more cost to be actually get into and close on a property here in Canada, where they would have to incur those costs, and then if they were turning around maybe doing a little bit of upgrades to the property and improving on it to then turn around and resell it, that's going to take a lot of any potential profit away from a company that unless it's in a market where it's going up double digits, it could be a bit challenging with our current landscape to be able to profit from that.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about the economy. Like, what are you seeing from a real estate market perspective and economy perspective? Some people are saying the U.S. economy is going to take a dip in 2020, 2021. And will the real estate market be affected? Will it not? What are you, at least for GTA, and maybe you understand Canada as well, what are you seeing for the market? The market is changing, in addition to the landscape itself. Definitely more of a balanced market. I think that's good for both buyers and sellers for us to slow down a bit and be in a little bit more of a balanced market, where prices aren't increasing so rapidly that it puts everyone at risk, and of course affordability being such a huge issue that slowing down the pace of that increase. Does that affect your model more? Because some people talk about these new models that have sprung up, and it's like, yeah, that's great when the times are great, when the real estate market's going like this, but when it goes down and when there's a valley and when there's a lull or a downturn, these models won't last.
It doesn't affect our model at all in terms of whether it's an up market or down market. Probably the way it does affect is probably we would have more interest from buyers and sellers that are more sensitive to making sure that they're trying to keep as much cash in their pocket as possible. So, when they're listing with us, our listing fee is half of what a typical listing fee would be. So they're saving when they're listing, getting some value added services. But then when they turn around and buy, we also share our commission with them 50-50. So they're getting that cash back, which can help them with some of their closing costs, maybe land transfer tax, maybe some furniture. So getting those values back out of it when they're already paying or using that service, being able to do it at half the cost of what they typically would, is pretty attractive.
Now, for those who don't know, Redfin was a employee-based, very similar like Redfin or Proptech in Canada. They went bankrupt. 1%, 2% realties or discount brokers. They have never really taken off that much. How do you see yourself being different and better and not having some of the issues that those types of models have had?
So we were very mindful of trying to balance out offering something to the customer that was fair and transparent in saving them money, but still being able to operate within the current framework of today's Canadian real estate landscape. So, again, I feel like a lot of it is about people don't want change to happen, and some people are adverse to change. So trying to make sure that they're not using some of those competitors, even though they're not necessarily supposed to be, but to try to make them kind of go away, right? we're not changing anything. You know, if a seller's working with us, they would still be offering a commission, and we would encourage them to be offering a full commission to the buyer's agent. So any other traditional brokerage that would be working with someone would still be attracted to our listing, because it operates in the existing landscape, just like any other property. And then, of course, the additional services that we're offering, you know, is something that, again, we're particularly covering, where we're not saying, going out to the market saying, look, we're listing a property for 1%, and there is no cooperating commission, and you as an agent are going to have to go and negotiate directly with the seller, and those types of things. That's been the model that has kind of over and over again failed in Canada.
Now, brokers just complain all over the place that they don't make a lot of money, period. You know, and so for you guys to be able to offer the same service, as you say, and for less, like some brokers might be listening saying, I'm trying to offer full rates and I'm struggling to be a profitable venture. Mm-hmm. So what do you have to say to those brokers, and why do you think that you guys are able to do it?
Well, a couple things. I mean, we are a startup, so we definitely have, you know, funding behind us to be able to go out and make an impact in the market, that we need to invest in the market for it to sort of invest in us, so to speak. So from that perspective, you know, it definitely does require some capital to be able to make that impact. But how we kind of are flipping it on its head, saying that everything we do is on a corporate basis. So every individual agent who's out there trying to market themselves in their little individual markets and spending the money, you know, the spend on that is billions and billions of dollars a year. Mm-hmm. We're doing that on a corporate level, which becomes a lot more efficient because our model is consistent through all of our agents. We're not trying to give out a whole bunch of small messages. We're giving out one large message. Mm-hmm. So we can do that a lot more efficiently across larger markets. So our spend on, you know, and over time, the spend becomes a lot more efficient because we're doing it on a corporate basis. And our agents are really an extension of what we're doing, versus someone who's working or licensed with a brokerage that's then kind of off to do and their own branding, their own marketing, their own campaigns and all of that. So when you get the efficiencies of that, we can do it a lot more efficiently than a traditional broker can. As well as, you know, the agents that work with us are all busy. So they're constantly in the market doing transactions, working with buyers and sellers all the time. Our model, like a traditional model, isn't bringing on as many agents as you can to just receive desk fees or monthly fees, which is how the traditional brokerage or broker is operating. There's almost two businesses going on. There's a business of the brokerage getting the fees from the agent and selling the agent, and then there's the agent selling to the customer. Mm-hmm. We're doing all of it. So our focus is making sure that we're getting the messaging out there and we're providing that value and that customer service to the mm-hmm. customer, and that our agents are always busy so that everyone's happy. If the agents aren't busy, then it doesn't benefit anyone.
So let's talk about your role in a brokerage like this versus your role in a traditional brokerage. How is your day-to-day? How is what you do differently? How is it different as a broker record in a brokerage like this versus a traditional one?
From a compliance perspective, it's very similar. I mean, every broker of record has to be compliant from a paperwork and regulation perspective, and the way, you know, everything operates within the brokerage. So from that perspective, there's really not much difference from one to the other. I think the difference for me is we're so much more involved in the agent's day-to-day, and you know, we really do operate and function as a team. Not only the agents working with each other, you know, they're working as a team because everyone works based on a territory. So none of them are ever competing for listings against each other. They're just working with leads and learning from each other, and we're really able to grow as a team because everyone's
Are
truly
you going to
working
maintain
together.
that like one agent per territory kind
Yeah,
of thing?
yeah, and because as we grow, so as our territories, the way our territories are structured, that we do have lead territory managers who actually manage and have the exclusivity over the leads that come in there. As they grow the business and as we get critical mass in the GTA and across different markets, then once they're to the point where they are at a volume that they can no longer handle, they would bring on agents that would work under them as team members. But they still maintain exclusivity over those leads. So we're really giving agents an opportunity to grow a substantial team and a substantial business at no cost or risk to them whatsoever, really, because we are doing a lot of the marketing.
How do you guys get them clients?
We do, so we have a marketing plan that really encompasses so many different factors, from traditional sources of, print, media, billboard, exposure, to a lot of online digital exposure that brings leads in through all kinds of different sources, obviously home estimations, as well as our search engine, where people are going in and looking at the property and our sold data. And when you're on our website, you can see with every listing, you can see how much cash back you would get if you were purchasing. So sort of the repetition with that is attractive to buyers, and then they go from that end into ending up using us for the purchase or sale.
Are there any different challenges that you experience being a broker record for this kind of model versus traditional?
Yeah, I think the number one challenge is, there's so much, because so much happens here at head office, there's a lot more to oversee, and, making sure that everyone's being currently up to date and being trained. We do a lot of training sessions with our agents. When there's sort of questions, and because we're a startup, some of our processes are always evolving as well. So it is intense at times, just making sure that you're trying to push everything forward at once, and but those are more challenges of any traditional startup. And growing that critical point in the business versus a challenge of a specific broker of record per se.
When our audience is full of agents, team leaders, brokers, what would be your message to them as to why they should come check you guys out as another way for them to have fun and make money in real estate?
I think we have a really unique culture. I've worked with a lot of brokerages and real estate companies, and the culture here is one very much of everyone that works with us truly believes in what we're doing. They live it, they breathe it, they love it, and they have a commitment to the model, which is what typically has attracted them there or to us. So it really is a very interesting culture, and people that want to be are searching for something different, and they've usually found us because they're looking for a different alternative, are sort of tired of doing it the old way. We are a Canadian-based company, so even though there is an emergence of competitors coming into the market, we're Canadian-based. We sort of came to the market before them, so I really do feel like we have an advantage over them because it means something to Canadians.
Very cool. So for all of you watching, most times when I do these interviews, they get the questions beforehand, they get to plan, they get to prepare. Vicki stepped in on short notice to be interviewed, and she has said a lot of great content. So I, one, commend you for being able to just speak so well and so clearly about a whole bunch of cool stuff. So if people want to get to know you and get in touch with you, get to know the brokerage more, maybe come work here or be a client for here, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. You can go to our website at www.justo.ca, and it's Justo. You can also email me directly at Vicki, which is VICKI, at justo.ca. Our phone number is 647-794-0064 if you want to give us a call.
Wicked. Well, thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
being on the show. As always, if you want to get to know more leaders in real estate and be great in real estate, be a mogul in real estate, then subscribe to the show, the podcast, the YouTube show, click that bell icon, and we'll have more shows and more leaders that you can learn from in the future.